Greetings, buddies. On this day, I shall enlighten you about a highly intriguing psychological horror flick of 2022 known as Don't Worry, Darling. The 1950s of the 20th century. Alice and Jack live in a typical American town, meet with friends, have fun, drive a car, and love each other. On a certain day, a woman is preparing for a party with her friends, while her husband goes to work along with numerous other white-collar workers. A female voice tells that today is the 997th day. All employees are on their way to the headquarters. All residents are safe and have been accounted for. Ladies wish you a good day, and Alice begins performing household chores and subsequently attends dance lessons, just like all the exemplary wives in this town. The leader of Shelley serves as a reminder that beauty is in control and elegance is found in symmetry. After classes, Alice returns home, chats with her neighbor Bunny, who constantly scolds her children and goes to shoot. The laundry is dried. The catchy melody keeps spinning in Alice's head, and she hums it repeatedly. And all of a sudden, she observes another neighbor, Margaret, who is standing in front of the house, not paying any attention to her surroundings. Alice starts cooking, but one egg arouses her suspicion. She squeezes it in her hand, and the egg turns out to be empty. The woman crushes the rest. There is nothing under the shell. This activity distracts her from the burnt meat. In the evening, she meets her husband beautifully dressed, with a styled hair and a set table. Truth, the husband decides to start with another, more pleasant activity. The next day, women relax by the pool. Alice gets distracted. The song is playing in her head again, and it's causing her anxiety. And then there is a visual row, a circle of women in wigs. Later, Alice approaches the layout of the town, and absent-mindedly runs her finger along the streets. And when she leaves the settlement, a bunny picks her up. It's time to drink cocktails that her children treat her with. Men are talking at this time. Distracting topics. Everything is decent, sunny, and calm. The signal sounds, and Shelley welcomes the new tenants. She is happy that the couple can learn from her husband, Frank, who has created something extraordinary. A new world. Margaret interrupts the woman's speech, saying she and her husband shouldn't be here. The husband hastily takes the woman away, while Frank, who appeared, apologizes to the guests. The couple is going through a difficult period. Their task is to pursue a dream and resist chaos, the main enemy of progress. And they all change the world. Guests pick up Frank's words. Everyone here is happy. They are all one family. The man thanks John for supporting husbands. They are their support. The fun continues. Alice goes to look for Jack, but discovers Margaret, who says she has nightmares. She can't be here now. The woman's husband pulls the curtain in front of Alice. A woman finds her husband at home. Jack kisses her, and the couple is alone. But at the brightest moment, Alice sees Frank, who watches their love game. Later, the women gather at the shopping center and discuss their ideal lives, as well as the unfortunate circumstances of Margaret. Alice feels sorry for her neighbor, although Bunny thinks that she herself is to blame for the troubles, because she herself took her son into the desert. They found her, but without the child. The conversation is about men's activities. No one knows for sure, but they say they are making weapons there. Bunny takes breaks. It is none of their business. Women also do work, create comfort for others. At night, Ellie has a nightmare. But in the morning, as always, she sees her husband off to work and starts doing the housework, and then goes on a trip. She remains alone in the trolley bus and states that she simply wants to take a ride, and all of a sudden, the woman observes a plane flying towards the mountains and it crashes there. Alice shouts at the driver, but he does not comprehend what she wants. The woman urges him to assist the victims, but he is currently driving along the designated route and is unable to make a turn. Alice jumps out of the trolley bus and runs towards the mountains. She walks for a long time in the desert, then comes out to the road and climbs up it to a high mountain. She moves closer, halting at the mirror glass. There is no one in the vicinity, solely her own reflection. Alice puts her hands on the glass and loses consciousness. In front of her in the darkness is a circle of dancing women, and a male voice calls for order. People should allow themselves to know what life should be like. In the next moment, Alice finds herself on her bed. Going into the kitchen, she sees Jack cooking dinner. The dishes are in disorder. A lot of products are spoiled. Alice doesn't get it. Husband explains when he arrived home she was already asleep. And she returned home by trolley bus. The woman does not understand. Did the driver come back for her? But now Jack is puzzled, looking at his wife. Alice decides she saw everything in a dream. The next morning, everything is going as usual. Alice sees her husband off and starts cleaning the window glass. But suddenly it seems to start moving. She is pressed against the wall and the woman is suffocating. In the next moment, the phone rings, and Alice finds herself completely free. Margaret's voice in the telephone receiver urges her to get out of here. After all, she was there and saw everything herself. Alice sees dancing women again, but now it's her and her friends. And suddenly, instead of her reflection, Margaret appears in front of her, who approaches the mirror from the other side and starts banging her head against the surface. Alice screams and comes to herself. She runs home and sees Margaret on the roof of her house. Looking at Alice, the woman cuts her throat and falls to the ground. Alice screams in horror, and the employees running towards her manage to catch her and takes the neighbor's body away. In the evening, she tries to explain herself to Jack, but he doesn't believe his wife. Margaret is in the hospital. She accidentally cut herself while washing the windows. Alice feels guilty because the neighbor asked for help. What is happening around? She asks to tell what he is doing in the project, but he cannot talk about it. He asks her to stop the hysterics, which can ruin everything. At night, Alice watches the advertisement of their town and catches herself thinking that she is struggling in a pool from which it is impossible to get out. In the morning, she is cooking, and suddenly she starts wrapping her head. Food film. Alice seems to be trying to come to her senses, but neither suffocation nor tearing off the film helps her. The doctor who arrives provides assurance to the woman that it is simply nervous tension because Alice witnessed the fall of Margaret. The woman once more asserts that the neighbor severed her own throat. The physician recommends prescribing medication to her, but Jack declines. They will manage. The doctor assures that Margaret will soon recover and return home. He leaves, forgetting his little suitcase, from which Alice manages to pull out a folder with Margaret's personal file, but the whole text is smeared. It is impossible to read anything. Alice burns the folder. She drinks alcohol and sees dancing women again, and then finds herself in the bathroom. Jack is feeling unhappy. They are running late and bring her a dress, and then Jack asks Alice to think about having a baby, and today they have a truly wonderful evening together. A couple comes to a restaurant where all the townspeople have already gathered. For those present, the number of a gorgeous blonde is being shown, and Alice again sees a round dance and Margaret killing herself. The situation is getting worse, but the people around don't notice. Frank gives a speech and invites Jack to join him on stage. He is ready to congratulate the man because now he is entering the highest expert council and presents Jack with a sign of loyalty, a ring. The audience applauds and Jack dances a dance of gratitude. Alice can't stand to look at it. She runs to the bathroom. In front of her, there is a vision of another Jack who lost his job. She is found by a bewildered bunny. Alice is explaining, but her friend interrupts. Was Alice at the headquarters? She went crazy. Behaves like a spoiled child. Her job is to support her husband, but she ruins his career. And now she behaves like Margaret. Returning to the hall, Alice watches Jack's triumph and restrains himself. In the morning, Jack reminds them they'll have guests in the evening. Need to show gratitude to Frank. Alice greets those who came with a smile. All is perfect. The husband meets Frank while Alice finishes cutting snacks. A man enters the kitchen and starts talking to the hostess. He apologizes for Bonnie's absence. Didn't believe her. But she didn't believe Margaret at the time either. He waited a long time for someone to challenge him. Guests sit down at the table. Alice demonstratively sits in the owner's seat. Jack, obeying, sits down next to him. The conversation about nothing begins, and suddenly Alice asks a question. For some reason, all women in the city are from one or at most two states. Everyone goes on vacation to the same places. Jack is trying to change the subject, but Alice keeps going. And all of the women meet their respective husbands on the train under the exact same circumstances. All stories are the same because they are told to remember, but sometimes they suddenly remember the forbidden. Frank is doing something with all. The man with smirk reminds her of her nervousness. Why isn't she receiving treatment? And why were you in the HQ? Jack is horrified. Was she present at the HQ? Frank continues. She broke rules. This is result of psychosis, but she opened up to him in his room. Alice freezes from terrible lie, but Jack believes Frank. Woman, trying to appeal to guests' common sense. Where did these products come from, and what's in them? But here comes Shelley. She will no longer allow her husband to be insulted. Guests are leaving. Frank is disappointed. He expected something more interesting from her. Jack, seeing everyone off, returns home. Alice is trying to convey to him that her husband is the most precious person to her and asks him to leave here. Anywhere, just together. And Jack agrees. They leave the house and get into the car. And here the husband apologizes to his wife. And in the next moment, the employees pull the woman out of the car and carry her into the darkness. Alice finds herself on the operating table. Visions with her husband are passing by. A doctor in a mask leans over her, whom she recognizes as herself. In the subsequent moment, Dr. Alice concludes the operation and heads home, where she is greeted by her unemployed husband. He didn't cook dinner because he didn't know what she wanted. There is no hot water either. Alice is very tired. She stood at the operating table for 30 hours, so she refuses her husband's intimacy. He sits at the monitor, listens to the ad of a new sim, and again a sunny morning in a heavenly town. Alice returns to her environment. She is greeted by an enthusiastic bunny and tells the latest news. Alice hugs her children and doesn't notice the concerned look of her friend. Husband is going to work. Alice does chores, dances, swims, and meets her husband. She takes out the hot dish from the oven. And Jack makes a choice of a record, humming a song, upon hearing which Alice appears to wake up from her slumber. Jack walks in the dark city, enters his apartment, while his physical characteristics are mentioned in parallel. He's fully fit for the Victoria Project with his girlfriend Alice and assumes the responsibility of maintaining his wife's bodily functions. Alice observes herself lying in a bed, immobilized and entangled with wires. Jack attends to her physical condition, as he needs to exit the simulation daily and labor in order to afford the expenses for her. The man lies down next to her and hums a song that Alice is hearing right now. She understands. He deprived her of real life. But the man went for it to save her from constant work. Frank created this world so that they could live as they wanted. He works for it like a dam. But she is happy. But what about the others? So they are really hostages. Jack hugs her, but Alice hits him on the head. In the next moment, Bunny locates her. Jack is no more. Frank is promptly informed of this. Bunny admits that she knows everything about simulation. She chose this life herself because here she can be with her children who are alive. But other women don't know anything. Alice must run, otherwise she will be killed. A woman goes out into the yard, walks to Jack's car and drives into the desert. Employees are catching up. The car catches up with her, but Alice, making a maneuver, causes a collision in which the doctor dies. The pursuers are chasing her car. Frank knows about the incident. He commands to apprehend the woman at any expense, and then Shelley stabs him with a knife. He is a fool and has failed everything. Alice is hurrying to the mountain, but near the top the car stalls. She keeps running on foot. Employees are chasing her. And here is the dome ahead. A woman approaches him when her pursuers are just steps away from her and suddenly feels her husband's hands on her shoulders, begging her not to leave. Shelley reaches out her hands. Strike, darkness, types of ideal life in Victor. And a sigh, awakening in the reality of a woman, the case when it is difficult to take someone's side. The husband deprived his wife of reality to make her happy. And probably many people will want to escape into a simulation from everyday problems. But can you make a person happy by force?